This is the weigh-in. Let's just get to it. Let's see what's happening on Twitter. Let's see here. I was already kind of into this, but
Similar to what you've done with...
Ready for a good fight, yeah. I think it's going to be easier than people think it's going to be.
Really, and what makes you say that?
Just 100% confident that Billy Joe is going to rise to the occasion and shock the world.
Similar to what you've done...
Billy Joe, like, his movement is very good, right? That's what I think the advantage he has over Canelo. Like, moving backwards, it's better than what Canelo does when he moves backwards. But Canelo's a better defensive fighter. So if we're going to say, like, Billy Joe's the better defensive fighter, and that's Billy Joe's, like, main thing is his defense, right? Canelo's a better defensive fighter. If we come from head movement, counter punching, to guard, to the legs with the head movement, like, and the legs in positioning when someone's coming at you, and, like, being able to reposition yourself for offense to come back, Canelo's better than Billy Joe at that. Billy Joe's just the one thing he's gonna have in this fight. It's just a movement. So I think it's gonna be a better, more. I think it's a tougher fight that people are putting together, right? That they think going into this fight. But I don't think that it's like gonna be a competitive, like, score wise or competitive going down the stretch. No, because Billy Joe's not gonna be able to put up enough together to, like, win rounds. He just really isn't. He's gonna make it difficult for Canelo. I imagine that, but I don't think he's gonna make it like a close fight. I don't think it's gonna be a close fight. I don't. I think it's gonna be Billy Joe moving and Canelo having a hard time getting to him, right? But that's, I don't know. I get both sides of it. Like, I get people saying, like, well, this isn't a good fight, right? It's not a competitive fight, and it's like, no, I don't expect Canelo to lose this fight. But and then the other side was like, people say, like, well, it's actually been a really tough fight for him. It's like, well, I don't think Billy Joe has enough offense, because at the point when he stops moving, that always favors Canelo. Every time Billy Joel's going to punch in this fight, it's going to favor Canelo. That's going to put him in the place where he doesn't want to be. So I get that. But, Tyson Fury's riding with this boy. I respect it. Let's see here. The biggest indoor crowd in American boxing history was Ali versus Spinks rematch in 1978 in New Orleans, with an attendance of 63,000. This Saturday will take the record in Dallas. That's crazy. Right out of a, like, pandemic. People kind of were doubting Canelo's, like, how big of a star Canelo was during the pandemic, I feel like, and especially, like, everything going with, like, the opponents he was fighting and stuff like that. And I think that, like, this weekend is going to re-solidify, like, how big Canelo really is. And I think that he has this run right now. This is like his DAZN England run, right? And that's what he's doing right now. But I think after this is going to be like his PBC run, and I think that those fights are going to be massive here in, like, the States. I think they're going to be massive. I think the versus Caleb Plant, versus Benavidez, and versus Charlo, like, those are just, that's why they don't fight each other. Like, what do you think that's why is the PBC holding those fights hostage? Because they know they have 3 giant paydays right there for each of those guys. They're like, why would I sacrifice one when he's about to get a massive payday for Canelo, like, next year? That makes sense. So Eddie Hearn confirms the ring size is now 22 feet, and that Saunders has never fought in a ring bigger than 20 feet. Well, also point out that his last 2 have been in 18-foot rings. A hoopla about nothing. No excuses now. So they did get the ring size that they want. And Saunders playing all these, like, mind games and everything, it's to be expected. Like, I knew he was never going to back out of that fight. I knew Canelo could have said, no, we'll make this ring 18 feet, and that fight would have still happened. They would not have backed out away from this fight. But I just don't think Canelo cares. Like, I don't think he cares. I don't think it is, like, the right thing for Saunders to argue for, because he needs as much ring to move around with. But Canelo knows that at the point to where he wants to win rounds, that he's probably going to be able to catch him at that point. You know what I mean? Like, that's the point, like, where he decides, when Billy Joe decides he wants to win rounds, that's where Canelo needs him. So he says, move around all you want. You won't win rounds that way. Canelo already knows that. They're not going to win rounds that way. So there's no problem to him. It's giving him whatever ring size he wanted. It isn't. Let's see here. Let's see what else we got. Billy. And they're saying he's not a slick fighter. No, he is a slick fighter. I don't know who's saying he's not a slick fighter. But he's not as good defensively as Canelo is. He isn't. And he has, he moves well. Like, he's probably one of the better movers in boxing right now, as far as, like, backwards movement and offense going backwards. He's pretty good. He's pretty damn good, right? But that's one dimension of the game, and it's gonna be hard to win a scorecard against Canelo if you're moving backwards with, one shot or 2 shot, and he's pushing forward and maybe hitting you on the arms or maybe even missing at points, right? But he's going to win that because the crowd's going to go crazy and the judge is going to prefer that than you moving around. It's just a fact. Now, if you have, there's a psychology to the judging of a fight and to win a fight, everything. Like Floyd Mayweather had the rep and everything that he was defensively a genius, and he is, but also there's rep to it, right? So when you punch and he smiles and he rolls off and everything like that, even though he's not attacking, it looks like he's winning the fight. It feels like a Mayweather fight. It feels like he's winning. So if Canelo's going forward and Billy Joe's moving, and even though maybe he's missing or Canelo's hitting him on the arms, it feels like, well, he's not like a Canelo fight. Like Canelo's putting all the pressure. He's putting all the work in. This is why Canelo beat Lara. This is why Canelo beat Trout. Now, the Lara one, I thought Lara won that fight. Me personally. I had to go back and look at it. From when I first saw it, I thought Lara won the fight. The Trout one, I think Canelo won. But those fights, right, you would think like, well, they were a lot closer or whatever. You're not going to win that fight because Canelo's a star. And when he goes forward, it feels like his type of fight. And when Floyd Mayweather's defending and then counterpunching you, even though you're doing all this work on his arms and stuff like that, he's going to win the fight because it feels like a Mayweather fight. That's just being a star. Like that, there's a psychology and dynamics, the psychology dynamic to the fight that people don't really talk about much, but that's definitely going to happen. So Billy Joe's going to have to bite down and get some offense going in this fight, and that's the point that's going to make him susceptible to getting hit. Let's see here. Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul exhibition boxing match set for June in Miami, Showtime pay-per-view. Floyd Mayweather. I don't know what the hell is this advertisement. I don't understand. There's no opinion there. Let's see here. Let's see. A lot of people had a problem with this being the main event this weekend, and I thought Magny versus Neal was like, seemed like the obvious choice to me for that fight. Cerrone's coming off a lot of losses. His opponent, no one knows, and Magny was just off of main event versus Chiesa, and Neal is like kind of like a prospect, I guess, in a way, or like a fringe contender. But the more I watch this fight, which I think is going to be a very competitive fight versus Marina Rodriguez and Michelle Waterson, they're borderline, like, of all the people there, they're borderline more contenders than all those guys that are fighting. Like, than Gillespie and, I can't think of his name right now, but, like, they're more contenders in their weight class to the title than the other guys are. Like, it actually makes a lot more sense that they're fighting. And I think that's honestly the most competitive fight. Of all the matchups, this is the best matchup. So I think the UFC did a really good job with this, and it's a quick patch job to what should have been a Dillashaw main event. But I think this is good, and it's still, like the UFC kind of just has like a brand now, like Kleenex is to tissues, where people are going to tune in and watch. Might as well give them some shine, give fighters some shine, and you might develop a contender that people have said, oh, I've seen her before, and I would like to see her fight for the title, or I'd like to see her have a big fight on a co-main event or a main event, right? On our future card. So I think this is good. No problem with it. And there's still the fights are on there. Like, who cares? I don't know. I think people overestimate like these things, the main event or everything. In the UFC, like, you could steal the show for like the first fight. In the prelims, people steal the show. Let's see here. Teofimo Lopez. Okay, Teofimo Lopez, George Cambros pushed back. It looks like the matchup with Teofimo taking George Cambros Jr. is getting a new party date. Oh, that's interesting because the Floyd fight's the Sunday after. So, and I know Triller's suing like a lot of people for streamers for streaming their fight, which, I mean, it's eventually going to start happening. Like, there's going to have to put something there. It's going to have to be like some kind of law, right, that stops people from stealing, because that's what it is. People are stealing. But I wonder. Like, that fight is hard to sell. Like, purists, like people that like enjoy boxing, they know that fight, but they know that's also not like that good of a fight. You know what I mean? Like, it's not even like, it doesn't even advertise to like the purist form of it, because Cambros doesn't really have a chance against Teofimo. He doesn't. Like, he's gonna apply pressure, but that's what Teofimo likes. Like, he's gonna be able to just tee off on him when he opens up. And then like the undercard isn't great, so that fight's hard to sell to the purists. How's it going to sell to the general public when people don't really even... Teofimo's not like a huge star. He isn't. He's not a superstar. He's like, he's like a ESPN on that card. Like, it's a decent fight, right? Like, if you're on the ESPN card and you already have ESPN, you go watch it. Like, that's decent, right? Cambosos is not known by anyone. Like really, he isn't known. He has a style that's like fan friendly, but it's just this is tough. And like coming off the thing, if Triller is not doing the numbers that it says it's doing, but it's paying all these people fat, like $1 million on the undercard and all that like that. This one's could hurt the bank because what they're paying these guys, there's just I don't see them getting it back. I don't. And if they move the date, that's even gonna get more confusing, and more people better know it because that's the first I heard of it. And I follow boxing Twitter all day. So let's see here. Bob Arum has declared that they will be announcing a major pay-per-view fight for Terrence Crawford this week. This is a big deal. This is not just any old fight. I'm hearing that it's Josecito Lopez, and as I like the Josecito Lopez going to get a good payday, right? I like that, and I like where Josecito Lopez is, and I like the PBC built him up. If that's true, that's the fight that's happening, right? That's not a pay-per-view fight, and that's not a major fight or not a big news for a fight. It isn't. Not for Terrence Crawford. So if that's a fight that they're bringing to the table, it's Top Rank's failure with Terrence Crawford. It really is. It's a failure. It's not Terrence Crawford's failure because he got paid fat for every fight, but it's Top Rank's failure what they had with him. If that's the fight that they're bringing, people are not, that's just not a big fight. It just really isn't. It's not a big fight. It's not a pay-per-view fight. It's a free fight. And like I said, they brought up Josecito Lopez the right way in PBC. They gave him another shot. He put together. He's looked good. He's looked real good. But he's looked good enough for like a Showtime pay-per-view, a Showtime main event, or a Fox card main event versus like a contender, not versus a world champ, versus a contender, right? Like Sean Porter or Danny Garcia, right? Not the champ of the world in Terrence Crawford and on pay-per-view. There's no way you can sell that. Like you're not going to get your money back on that. Let's see here. I've been trying to follow like more MMA pages. I follow them, but like they never post. I never see MMA like on here. The Ramirez Taylor, that's coming up. That's a good fight. I don't know what they're doing like with the I don't know. Like people are like complaining about the promotion and everything like that, and I haven't seen much on it. But we're in the beginning of May. I think like probably like the middle of May they're really gonna push it, especially on ESPN and all that. But then they did like in a small arena. I don't know what the strategy is on this, but I just want to see this fight. Like beyond the business point of it, I don't really care. That's a really good fight. I think Taylor's gonna win it. I haven't broken down yet, but I think that's a very good fight. I was looking like at Billy Joe's previous wins up until this point. And there was a point where he had like David Lemieux when David Lemieux was something, and he beat what's his name? Who's like a trainer now? Lee. He beat Lee when he was something, right? And that was like the moment like where you would think he'd get the shot, and then he fought like literally a batch of nobodies, right? And a lot of those wins weren't even impressive. Like, and the fact that he was complaining about Eddie Hearn got you this big payday. You do not deserve this big payday. You don't. You do not deserve this big payday that you're gonna get. And one of the biggest fights of the year. If the Joshua Fury fight doesn't get signed, probably, honestly, the biggest fight of the year. So the complaints that they have, and I know it's all probably show and gimmick and, just trying to get himself riled up for this fight, but he does not really deserve to be here. I'm going to say that right now. There's so many more deserving people, and just because Canelo's kind of on a tour here with like European fighters, it's kind of like on theme. And also he's got he's kind of fighting he's being very active, right? And the PBC deal, when he does that, when he goes, I don't know if he's not gonna sign PBC, but when he goes to PBC and he starts fighting their fighters, that'll be a whole different promotion than what they're having right now. But right now, it kind of just makes sense the way they went about it, right? And that's why he's getting this opportunity. But he does not deserve this opportunity, so he should be very thankful for getting this and what Eddie Hearn did for him. Let's see, this is the Triller film. Suing all like the stream things, and that's gonna be interesting. Like it's gonna set a precedent going forward. I know Dana White's like trying to work on that too. And if you think about it, and I know people like, what did probably watch a lot of streams, but it's stealing. Like we just gotta be honest with it. You're taking millions of dollars off from the fighter, from the from the promotion, from the network, and all that. And if you like boxing and all that, and you want the fighters to get paid more, I'm not gonna say I'm against them finding all the money that they should get for this fight. If people want to watch it, that's the way it goes. You got to pay for it. But I do think more fights should be free than pay-per-view fights, especially like, I don't know, some of the cards are pretty ridiculous, and especially that Terrence Crawford, Jose Lopez fight. That shouldn't be pay-per-view. De La Hoya, man, I was telling my brother, we're talking about De La Hoya, and he's gonna fight like an MMA fighter. And boxing's playing a dangerous game with this. I'm just gonna say it right now. And with the Jake Paul thing, all that, it's like the Jake Paul thing worked out for boxing in that instance, right? Because they beat the MMA fighter, and he'd be like, and it's like boxing's gambling with something with house money. It doesn't lose anything. If he loses, who cares? You know what I mean? Really. But now you got Floyd fighting Logan Paul, and he's gonna beat the hell out of Logan Paul. I get that, but what if big guy? What if he lands something stupid? What if Floyd's too arrogant? Whatever, right? Not gonna happen. Not a chance. I know that. But I'm just saying, De La Hoya fights an MMA fighter, right? De La Hoya. No matter how old he is or everything, you're going to the general audience. You're not selling to like a purist, right? A purist can make sense of it and can tear it apart and all that. The general audience doesn't. They really think that Jake Paul, right? They think Jake Paul is the enemy to MMA, right? Like they think that Jake Paul's convinced people that he knock out, all the MMA guys. Like it's the general audience. They're very easily switched. They don't study this stuff. They're not watching this all the time. They just take glimpses of it, and you're like, oh, okay, that's what they think. So I'm just saying, De La Hoya, we know is still drinking, we know is still partying, all that stuff. If he went in there and he's like, I don't know how old De La Hoya is. He's late 40s, right? He goes in there and he takes a beating from an MMA fighter. No one's gonna say that's old De La Hoya. Right? They're going to be like, oh, see, we could take their guys on. You get what I'm saying here? Like, I'm just saying boxing's taking some risk here. It's not like it isn't. It's taking risk. And if De La Hoya goes in there and takes a beating, and like like boxing fans, right, and people fan of the sport, don't put all your faith in De La Hoya. He will break your heart. You know what I mean? Like, the guy is giving you all the warning signs here that he is not 100% mentally, and his life is not in the best place, right? If we're looking at the Triller thing and all that, it's just playing a dangerous game. I'm just saying, we're playing a very dangerous game with this whole celebrity stuff and all that, which will die out. You know what I mean? Like I think like people are saying like the celebrity stuff is saving boxing. Like, no, it's not. Boxing doesn't need saving. It's not a league. It's a sport, right? It's a sport that over years has survived. It's still made millions, right? Saving something would be like bringing collegiate wrestling, those rule sets, right? Actual wrestling, right? If like someone went to that and brought it up to, and NBC put it on primetime, that'd be saving it, right? That'd be saving it. If Jake Paul went to badminton and then they put it on primetime, that'd be saving the sport. That would literally put the sport in somewhere that's never been before. When Jake Paul fights, right? And I enjoy it. It's fun, and for what it is, you know what I mean? It's fun. But how many YouTubers or people that watch YouTube or young kids are gonna go and now watch? I'm trying to think of a fight that Joe Smith Jr. versus Maslov. Vax and Maslov. How many are gonna watch that? Like, how many young kids were like, oh, I gotta watch that fight now? I don't think they correlate like with that. Boxing is not a league. It's not the UFC. If the UFC died, right, MMA wouldn't die. It would just someone else. It's just a bad business model. Boxing right now is just promotions, right? And those promotions could die, not because the sport sucks, because it's a bad business model. And then someone else will get it. And say all the promotions, right? Say they stop selling and people think it wouldn't just disappear, right? People are still trying to make the XFL work. Why? Because football's not going to die. And the NFL is smart with it. But if the NFL died, football wouldn't die. Someone would pick it up again. They're making, they make remakes of TV shows all the time. Why? Right? Why? Why do they do that? Because there's something there that works, and they're going to try it if it can make money. Boxing can always make money. It will never die, I promise you. It will never die. It's been around for, hundreds of years. It's proven, right? Karate died. Okay, no one's watching karate prime time. Now, if Jake Paul and Logan Paul went to karate and then they brought it prime time, then I would literally be like, yeah, they are saving that sport. No, they're not saving boxing. They get views for their fights, right? Their fights. I don't think they're bringing in audiences to other fights. I don't think boxing viewership has went up because of them or anything like that. It doesn't need saving. The guys make millions of dollars. There's $1 million events. Canelo's fighting this weekend. He's going to make 20-something million dollars. His opponent's going to make $9 million. The whole event is going to generate close to $50 million to $60 million. Okay? If not more. So it doesn't need saving. They're not saving the sport. But when the boxers like this take the chance, if Floyd Mayweather keeps fighting celebrities and keeps fighting these MMA fighters and Delo fights MMA fighters, you're taking a chance. That's risky. That could honestly hurt the sport. And Floyd Mayweather, like I said, these guys, they do not care about boxing. They care about themselves. They care about paydays. That's the tough part. That's the tough part about sports, right? That's the tough part. But like, why the NFL doesn't let, and the example I always use, Tom Cruise, if he wanted to play quarterback and the Jets signed him, it'd be the biggest, most viewed thing. Why don't the NFL let that? Why didn't the NBA let Tony Romo, who went and was like an honorary member of the Mavericks, go play in a game, right? Because they got to set a precedent. Because someone is thinking farther ahead, right? If someone was owned boxing, they owned it and they had to market it and they had to build it for the future, they would not allow celebrity fights. They just wouldn't. And not against their best fighters. Because it's too risky. No one is thinking of the what's going to go on, happen later. These are just fighters just thinking about themselves at that moment. Easy paydays, paydays they probably need, and they're not thinking about the sport. They don't have your best interest in the thing or the sport's best interest. They don't. And that's why Dana White has to control MMA, right? Because he owns a league of it. So he has to control his fighters. That's why fighters are going to stop fighting Jake Paul. That's why DC's not going to fight Jake Paul. That's why Kamaru Usman is not going to fight Jake Paul, right? Because he's not going to risk it. Whether they probably beat, I think Usman would beat Jake Paul. But Dana White's not going to risk that because he's got to protect the brand going forward. I just think that, Floyd's going to beat Logan Paul. I promise. I'll bet the house on that. But it's just risky. And is it worth the risk? I don't know. Like, it's just risky for the sport. No one is thinking of the sport at this moment. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I don't think like Floyd beating Logan Paul on pay-per-view, whatever, I don't think that hurts the sport in any way. I think him losing would hurt the sport really bad. I do think that. Do I think he's going to lose? No, not a chance. But if you keep rolling the dice, right? You keep rolling the dice, eventually, right? Eventually, you roll snake eyes. We have to avoid that snake eyes. Floyd Mayweather's the best. He believes he's the best to ever lace up the gloves. Those debates, I was watching Floyd versus Pacquiao the other day because I think it was like the anniversary of it. And so I'll end on this. Let's see. Floyd Mayweather's the best defensive fighter I have ever seen. He's the best defensive fighter I've ever seen. It's hard to say that he would beat this guy and this guy would beat this guy if they're never going to fight. You know what I mean? Like, we're wrong about predictions all the time. So it's stupid. Like, I get the argument on it, but it doesn't settle anything. No one's saying like he's the best and this guy's the best. Sugar Ray Leonard was a damn good fighter. And he was very fast, and he was very active, and he could do everything. He could fight backwards, go forward. He was not defensively as good as Floyd Mayweather, right? It wasn't. So I don't know if his offense, right? But you also got to think of the star power. See, Floyd was the biggest star in boxing. Then it was Pacquiao, but he was still below Floyd, right? But Sugar Ray Leonard was a huge star in boxing. He's a huge star because he's still a big star now, right? So when those two fight each other, and Sugar Ray Leonard flurries on him, and it's on his arms. Like I was telling you about there's certain things like a star goal and flurries. It's excitement. It causes excitement in the crowd and the judges, and it looks more effective than maybe it actually is. So it's hard to say that Floyd Mayweather would beat Sugar Ray Leonard if Sugar Ray Leonard is active in the fight. I think Floyd Mayweather definitely, you put him in that bubble with the top guys. I think that's what I think of. I don't think of like he's the best, whatever. Sugar Ray Leonard has the best resume, in my opinion. Floyd Mayweather has a top 10 resume. Manny Pacquiao has a top 10 resume. They're right there. I don't know who's better than who. I don't know who would win in a fight. But resume-wise, Sugar Leonard has a better resume than Floyd Mayweather. Look at the legends he's beat. Like, his guys he beat are legends. Absolute legends in the sport. Floyd Mayweather has beaten Manny Pacquiao, legend, right? He beat Canelo, who was, younger, but he has that win over him. So we'll give it to him. Okay, he beat Canelo. Beat Cotto, who's not a legend, very good fighter. Cotto's a very good fighter. Beat Shane Mosley. Shane Mosley passed his prime. Beat Ghost Guerrero. So it's tough. It gets tough. And I can say that Sugar Ray Leonard has those wins too, but Sugar Ray Leonard also has Roberto Duran. He also has Tommy Hitman Hearns. He has Marvin Hagler, who's Marvin Hagler's only loss, right? He has a lot of like good fighters, but those right there, those three are just like that right there. It's just like those are legends. Hagler is probably a top 10 fighter himself. Hitman Hearns is a top probably 30 fighter. Roberto Duran, top 10 fighter. Those are huge wins, massive fights. Now, is it Floyd's problem that there wasn't, those fights? I think he probably could have fought Pacquiao earlier and probably could have fought him again. He probably could have fought Shane earlier. He beat De La Hoya. He's De La Hoya too, but he beat De La Hoya. No, I'm not going to take it away. He beat De La Hoya. Those are, like I said, they're top 10. I think when Ray Leonard went to middleweight, he fought Hagler at middleweight. He fought Roberto Duran, when Roberto Duran was right there. He fought all those guys it was no question. It was no question he catch him late or he catch him old. No, he fought him right there and he went to their weights. He didn't play no games. He went and did it. So they're all, to me, in that bubble. I don't know who the best ever. To me, resume-wise, Sugar Ray Leonard has the best resume. I don't know who beats who. I would never do that. If I did that, it would be purely fun, and I wouldn't, base I think he beats him, and that's just a fun. No, I just, everything we do this, right? I'm going to pick Canelo to beat Billy Joe Saunders. I could be wrong. We could all be wrong. If on paper you did Andy Ruiz versus Anthony Joshua, everybody picks Anthony Joshua. On paper, if they never fight each other, they were 10 years apart, you would pick Anthony Joshua. Andy Ruiz won the first fight. That's what I'm saying. It has to play out before you can say, this guy for sure would beat this guy. We do not know. We do not know. But that's where I'm going to end this. This has been The Weigh-In.